Shakina, what I'd like you to do is just really share a little bit about your background before we go into all the amazing things that you are doing.
Okay. Okay. Well, what can I say about myself? I've had quite a wide and varied career. Um, After my law degree, I was picked up by the police authority, and I did 2 terms of office with that, especially looking at community relations between the Black community and the police. And because it was really after Stephen Lawrence, um, the police had to go through a lot of training because of institutional racism, etc. So I was a big part of that. And for about 15 police forces up and down the country, I trained on community relations and impact assessments and policy and practice and things like that. And that was really interesting, quite varied. So I was able to do a lot of work on stop and search and different things like that. So I think that was really a good contribution towards the community. I wouldn't say it's improved everything, but at least they knew what they had to do, but whether they did it or not, that's another thing. But yeah, so I was involved in a lot of that, police misconduct panel. What else? Quite a few other things, what do you call it? Oh, gosh. Identity Parade Suite in Northamptonshire, helping to set that up and, things like that. Then move across to some other public agencies like councils and primary care trusts, and then ended up in higher education, where, again, trying to implement policy, practice and procedures for students and staff in higher education. So I was doing a lot of that in the UK, also representing people in employment tribunal, giving legal advice and different things. So quite a varied career, quite interesting and different. And then before I left the UK, I started my own business again as a health practitioner. And being a vegan, not only is it about what you eat and put inside your body, but it's also about what you put outside the body, because they both meet somewhere in the middle. So I started making natural, chemical, preservative-free skincare and hair care products, particularly for our people, using raw materials from Gambia, because I've been coming here for so many years. So using things like black soap and shea butter, but also combining those raw ingredients with essential oils, because essential oils is what actually heals the body. So I have a range of skin and hair care products that I make for our people, including mosquito repellent, just to keep those bugs away. So that's a little bit about me in terms of what I've done career-wise. And I've been visiting Gambia for about 15 years now, and just felt that it was home to me, and decided that, when my last child finished university, that I would retire and come and live here. And that's exactly what I did. And it's been a wonderful journey so far. It's going into my 4th year, and it's been really good. Very, very good.
Wow. Such a varied, CV, Shakina. And it seems as though all those different components has really sort of helped you to do what you're doing now. And one of the things is, I was telling people that you're a lawyer turned lady builder, and people were really kind of excited and, wow, what does she do? How does she do it? So can you just walk us through, I know you built your home and you got a lot of, a lot of people, were very, very happy with what they saw and they wanted the same. So can you just walk us through, how did it all get started with you becoming a lady builder?
Okay, well, I haven't finished my house yet. I'm actually taking a break, and because I've been so busy with everybody else's house, I haven't been able to get back to mine yet. But that will happen later on this year, because I need to finish mine. The thing, how it came about is I knew I always wanted to build my own house when I came here. You know, some people, when I started doing the research many years ago, you know, I spoke to a few contractors and they'll say, like, you know, you could just give us the money and the plans and we'll give you your keys at the end. I thought,
Mm.
oh no, I need to have my own spirit in the house. So I always decided I'd build my own. My parents built their own homes in Antigua, um, and that went very well. I thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So I started doing research on different things so that I could tool myself up with what I need to do. Plus, all the years I've been coming here, I've been going around looking at buildings and just trying to see, well, what the standard of building was here, and compared it to what I needed.
Mhm.
But then I decided, you know, because I wanted my own energy and spirit to be in my home, I decided I would build it myself. So I started doing that. And I always promised people I'd share my journey on Facebook. I'm not a YouTube person. So I use Facebook and, you know, everybody, you know, can see what I've been doing here since I've moved and everything. So, you know, I'd share being on the land and learning how to make bricks and, you know, just showing them little things. And people started saying, well, you know, if you're doing that for yourself, why not doing it for other people? I thought, oh, no, I can't do that. That's too much. But then I realized that what we need down here as returnees is a different service. Now, even though, you know, we are all African, but there's been a massive separation. There's been a 500-year separation in counting.
Mhm.
And that separation has led to a non-recognition of our Africanness sometimes. So sometimes we come home and our own brothers and sisters don't always recognize us for who we are. And just like anywhere in the world, if someone finds an opportunity, they'll use it. And so, you know, there are a few people here that have had bad experiences with building and, you know, other things. And I thought, well, how can I help with that? Well, I'm on the ground, so I can, you know, keep an eye on things just like I'm doing with my own property. And I started to offer that to other people as well, because I don't think it's very fair that, you know, we've worked so hard in very harsh conditions, saved, you know, our life savings, a little bit of money,
Mm.
and, you know, for someone to take that in the wrong way. So I decided that I would use my experience to help other people as well. And so I looked for what service I could offer, found a service and developed that. And, you know, the rest is history sort of thing.
Wow. And you know what I think's really good as well, Shakina, is that, you know, you're doing this and then you're also over there and providing business, providing, you know, work for people there. So
Absolutely.
you are, you know, as much as you're kind of helping yourself and helping people from the diaspora returning, you're also
Hmm.
helping the people there as well. What's it like? And I just wanted you to do a sort of quick day in the life of, because people listening to this are
Hmm.
excited that of what you're doing, and they may want to do something similar. So,
Yeah, a typical day. It's very varied. No 2 days are the same. And that's what I like.
ah,
I'm a workaholic. I love work. I can admit that. I just can't sit around. I love working, and I think my career has put me in that position because,
mm,
you know, being a senior manager, managing, you know, sometimes like 10 departments, you know, you have to keep on your toes. But I like that because I like being busy. So a typical day could be, for example, I might go to court in the morning, you know, because I help people here in their cases. I
okay.
should have got to see somebody.
Mhm.
Uh, then I might go on site to keep an eye on what's going on. I might have to go and buy some materials. I might have a few meetings, maybe team meetings, because I've got various teams who work on different buildings. So I might have a team meeting. I might go to do some land sourcing. You know, there's so many different things that I could do in one day. You know, some days are shorter, and some days are longer. It all depends on what I want to do in any particular day.
Wow.
And it's really up to me. I decide what I want to do. If I want a full diary, I can have a full diary. If I want a shorter diary, I can have a shorter diary. It's really up to me.
So a lot of freedom is what I'm hearing then. So people wanting to return, what would you say? What sort of businesses, or because obviously I think it's really important to go over and have be able to contribute in some way, whether it's giving people jobs or what have you. What would you say are the kind of businesses that people could consider that could work really well if they wanted to come to the Gambia?
Right. Gambia is a small developing nation.
Mhm.
There's so much. I mean, every day I'm seeing different things. I think, oh, I wish a UK person would do this or do that.
Yeah.
You know, even things like, okay, let me give you one example, a breaker's yard. Now, there's lots of abandoned cars, broken cars, you know, and it would be really, really nice. And, you know, people complain about getting decent parts here. So it would be really, really good if, you know, somebody wanted to get into something like that where they could set up a really decent breaker's yard with decent parts. So that if somebody wanted car parts, you know, they could find decent parts, not just parts that are going to last for 2 minutes and
Mm.
break down again. You know, so just little things like that. Even the other day, about a month ago, one of my drivers, I think his car axle or something broke and it was on the road. I said, "Oh, what are we going to do?" He said, "Oh, the mechanic will come to me." I thought, "Oh, where's the breakdown service?" There's no breakdown service.
Mhm.
So, you know, even just things that we take for granted in the UK, so many things could be done here. There's so many other businesses as well that people could do, you know, maybe exporting certain things. And I'm a vegan, so a lot of the food stuff, I can get lots of fruits and vegetables here, but I have other supplements that I eat as well, like, you know, my cranberries and my mulberries and pumpkin seeds and different things that I don't get here readily. So I still have to, you know, ship them in. So, you know, even something like a Holland and Barrett type shop
Mhm.
would be ideal down here because, you know, we want to encourage people to eat more healthily down here as well. But there's a lot of opportunities here. You know, you just have to be creative in what you want to do. But you're right that every opportunity, every business creates jobs. I probably employ about 20 people, and that's quite a lot. Plus, I have my helper that comes every weekend. I have a couple of drivers. So, you know, there's so many employment opportunities that I myself, or what about if you took 50 people
Mm.
who are employing people in different ways, maybe in their shops, their restaurants, their guest houses. You know, most people have a helper in the house. Maybe they have a watchman. They might have a driver, a gardener. You know, we're all offering opportunities for employment here, especially for the young people, because Gambia is a youthful population. Um,
Yes.
Over 60% of the population between 18 and 35.
Wow.
And a high proportion of those young people do not have jobs.
Wow. So yeah. No, I'm hearing and I feel that what's really good about what you're saying, it's not about coming and going to the Gambia and saying, no, you know, this is missing and that is missing. Seeing it as opportunity, seeing it as, you know, it's a time for you to tap into your creativity and see what you can
Mhm.
do, and with all that wealth of young people, you know, my gosh, you know, what can you do with you know, and it sounds like they're all, you know, willing and wanting to utilize their skills. But obviously, you know, more people need to come forward. And
Yes, I mean, a lot of skills training centres for vocational qualifications because, you know, not everybody's academic. So, but there are a lot of trades that we need here, you know, builders, electricians, especially electricians. We need very good electricians here. Plumbers, you know, carpentry work is second to none down here. It's very good. Um, but, you know, there are a lot of, say, older people who maybe, you know, have come to the end of their career, retired, but they can come and give back something to younger people here, mentoring young people. There's just so much that can be done here. So much.
Mhm. And so, you know, with the young people, and would you say that there's lack, you know, that there's a lack of jobs and maybe schools or what have you for the children that are there or the young people that's there. So education, people, teachers, ex-teachers and people like that, is that sort of something that could be useful, or what would you say?
Okay, so what happens in Gambia in terms of jobs?
Hmm.
It's not really easy for returnees to get jobs because, as you can appreciate, the job should go to Gambians first.
Oh.
And I appreciate that. However, what I would say is that the capacity needs raising, and that's where we could help in terms of training, facilitating training to raise that capacity. And I think we should be doing that, not, white people or Indian people or Chinese people. I think that's our job as other Africans, that we should be doing that. So
And
I think that's something that could be worked in collaboration with the government here to let them know what skills we're bringing, what we can offer, and how we can collaborate to upskill the Gambians.
yeah. And I know there's a community of returnees as well where you are, and it's a growing situation. It's growing and doing really well. So that's the thing as well. People wanting, maybe a bit, what am I going to do? How am I going to connect? What can you talk about connections and
Mhm.
how people, can find that they are going to be able to make friends and what have you?
Yeah, well, there's been a community here for many years. I mean, that's how I learned a lot of what I know about what people have been through.
Mhm.
It's just sitting and talking to people and networking, and if people are willing to share their story, that's how we can assist each other. Because if someone goes down a particular road and they fall in a pit, and they're willing to share that, then it stops other people from falling into that
Mhm,
pit.
mhm, mhm,
So if you're willing to share the good, the bad, and the ugly,
mhm, mhm.
so we can protect each other. Um, so yeah, there is a growing community. There's been one here, even before I came, and is it a mixed age group, different experiences, different careers, all sorts of things here. And we do regularly get together on particular issues, or we just network or we socialize together. There's one particular place that we've been going for probably about 12 years now, which is Maimuna's Garden Restaurant. And on a Sunday, there's a Caribbean buffet, and that's been going on for years. And that's where a lot of networks happen, where you can sit down while you're eating your meal. Place is very friendly atmosphere. You could just get talking to anybody there. And a lot of people from the UK come, they go there, and so they meet up with us who are living here. We can introduce ourselves, speak to them, give them advice, and just let them see how they can navigate themselves through the Gambia. And
And
we've got other places. We've got Hyper Village, um, and other places where we can meet.
And that's lovely to be able to kind of obviously connect with the Gambians, but also to have some people with a similar background. What I want to ask
Yes.
you, Shakina, is
Mhm.
why did you choose the Gambia? Because Africa's a big continent. What was it for you about the Gambia? Because I know a lot of people who have returned tend to choose the Gambia. What was it for you?
For me, I came here 15 years ago. It was the first trip, and when you look at the Gambia, it's very small. It's still developing, which is nice. It's not, if you're looking for somewhere different to the West, you'll definitely find that in Gambia. So it's still developing. There's a lot of potential here. And I'm from a small island in the Caribbean, Antigua. And when I saw Gambia, I didn't see any difference between Gambia and Antigua. You've got some nice houses, you've got some not so nice houses, you've got some good roads, you've got some bad roads. And, I just thought, well, there's no difference really. There really isn't any difference. The attraction is that this is the motherland. So that was more of an attraction than anything else, is that I'm returning back to where it all started. So for me, that was a big attraction. And that's why I decided to come here. I did go to South Africa couple of years after I came to Gambia. And South Africa's nice, but it's too built up for me. That's not what I was looking for, as a retiring person.
Wow. You don't
But,
you don't sound like a retiring person, but I'm
I've been retired 6 years.
and this is the thing as well. What it sounds like as though, you can have a life, the life of your dreams. And I feel that this is what, when I've spoken to you about it, that's what it sounds like. And I think people, need to kind of, what would you say to people if they were listening to this conversation and said, I want to get started? What do I do first? What would you say would be the first step they need to take?
Have a plan, write a plan down. I had a 12-year plan.
Oh.
And as soon as I came here, I knew I wanted to retire here. And I knew I had about 12 years until my last child finished university. So I worked around that because everything I do around my children. And so I knew, that I had a certain amount of time till I got to a particular age. And I always wanted to retire around the 50 mark. So I worked around that and I had the plan. So I knew what I was doing and I just worked to that plan until I was able to execute it. But I would always say, have a plan, write it down, decide when you can finish work. If you've got family that either you're going to bring them with you or leave them there, when can you make that transition? If you've got property there, are you going to sell it? Are you going to rent it? All these things are to be considered. Are you going to move here full time, part time? Some people do 6 months here, 6 months in the UK because they might still be working for a little while. What can you do in that time? So that plan has got to take into consideration all sorts of things. Are you looking after elderly parents? Have you got any health issues that you need to deal with? So there's lots of things that you have to take into consideration first.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, as I'm talking to you, I've just coined the phrase, I see you as a returnee coach. So if people wanted to get in, because I suspect you do some type of, kind of guiding people through. And
Yeah.
At this point, what I'd like you to do, Shakina, is just share your details because obviously I'm pretty sure people are going to want to know more.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So my email is Nubian, NUBIAN, LC at AOL.co.uk. I'll repeat that. Nubian, NUBIAN, LC at AOL.co.uk.
Right. So, Shakina, what I want to ask you now is obviously you're a lady and you are in the Gambia. Women listening who maybe feel, I want to do the same thing. How easy is it for women? And is there a lot of women doing this as opposed to, say, couples or families or what have you?
I'm glad you asked that. That's a really interesting question. It's a mixture, but there are a lot of single men and single women moving to Gambia. There are couples as well, but I think single people probably outnumber that. And I think people have just got to the stage where the UK is just not doing anything for them anymore. And, as African people, we know how difficult the UK is. It's just not conducive to us at all if you want to have a good quality of life. So a lot of single women, I can only speak for women because I'm not a man. So let me put from the female experience.
Female experience.
The women are just, they're coming out here, they get to a certain age and they think, you know what, I want a better quality of life. They come, they buy their land, they build their house and they get on with it. They do their charity work or they do their business. And, I'm really proud of a lot of women that are coming down here and they're just getting on with it. This can be quite a patriarchal community, particularly because it's predominantly a Muslim country. But that doesn't really affect us too much because most of us are not Muslim. And we have a different way of life. Most of us are career women. So we're used to that. I know when I first started doing the building, going into the builders merchants or the quarries or the um, woodworking yard, you know, they would look at me quite strange, like, "Oh, what are you doing here? Where's your husband?" And, you know, things like that. I said, "Oh, you're dealing with me." And you know, about a year later, they're like, "Oh, okay, okay, Auntie Shakina," and they began to respect what I was doing, realizing that, you know, you don't need a man next to you to do these things. Just get on with it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I find it fascinating. And I think as women are becoming more and more independent and, having their own, wanting to do different things and travel, it
Hmm.
just seemed like a really important question to ask because I'm sure women are listening and thinking you sound like a very strong, powerful lady who's living the time of your life, and they might want to follow suit. Young people, so people with children, so families, because I feel it's
Hmm.
good to break down the different groups of people that might be
Yes.
attracted. What can people
Yes.
expect, for their children in terms of, the education and different things, recreation for them and all the different things? What would you say?
Okay. Again, a really good question. A lot of young people are moving down here because, and especially people that have teenage children, getting away from the gang violence,
Mhm.
etc. But even the education system in the UK, and people are taking their children out. And, if I had to live again, I would probably bring my children out a lot younger, because I think it's a really good environment. They can learn the language, they can learn culture, they can see people that look like them doing professions. Just imagine just something as simple as seeing a billboard with black faces on. That makes a huge difference for our children. You go into an estate agent and you see a family buying a home. Yeah. So, it's important for our children to see certain images around them, and they'll see that here. Um, so, in terms of education, you've got two choices. Just like in the UK, you've got the government schools or you've got the private schools. So, really, it just depends what you want. Um, the basic schools are basic. It's enough to, reading, writing, arithmetic, whatever you want to call it. Um, I'm not saying children don't leave from there and go to university, etc., because they can. And of course, that depends on the child's ability.
Mm.
You can also choose the private schools, which wouldn't be at the same standard as private schools in the UK, but you'll get a step up from the basic schools. So it really does depend what you want, for your children. What I would say though is that in terms of good, solid African history, that's something that Africa needs to really um, introduce into their schools. That we need to really be instilling in our children our Africanness, not other people's story of our Africanness. So that's quite important that the schools should be teaching, about Pan Africanism, about great African heroes and sheroes. And I think that's really important that, it's not just, well, we were taken as slaves and, that's it. What was Africa like before slavery? Teach about that greatness as well, because it really does have an impact on the self-esteem of our children if they don't know where they've come from, what kind of history was in Africa before. As they say, you know, until the lion learns to tell his own story, the hunt will always be glorified by the hunter. And that's absolutely true in terms of the education curriculum that our children are getting. So it's really important and imperative that we educate our children and give them the knowledge that we need them to have.
And what would you say would be the best way to start turning things around when it comes to children's education and how they feel about themselves? Because I do agree, self-esteem for young people is so important. And it does seem that certainly here, there is a lot of low self-esteem going on.
Mm, definitely. And, when I did my master's degree, I focused my thesis on black male violence, parenting, and structural inequalities. And when I interviewed a number of black males, different age range from young to, 40s, 50s. What was a recurring pattern is that a lot of them said when they were in the classroom at school, they felt totally disconnected from what was being taught. They didn't feel a part of that. So some of them played up. Some of them thought, well, it's a waste of time. Or, some just weren't interested at all because like, well, there's nothing in this curriculum about me. So why should I bother? And that led to low self-esteem that, well, I'm nothing much here because I'm not even included in this curriculum. So it's really important that the home and the school have almost like a tripartite relationship in terms of, how do we build the character of these children? And the home should be doing some and the school should be doing some. I don't believe it's all down to the school because, parents have a role to play as well. But I do appreciate that not all parents have the capacity to teach their children certain things because you have to look back at their upbringing as well and their knowledge base.
Yeah. And
But as I said, it takes a village to raise a child. So we should all be contributing to the education of our children as African people.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And yeah, the village thing, that was always the case years ago growing up. You weren't, everyone was involved, whereas that has changed a lot.
Absolutely.
How does that work in Gambia? In the Gambia, how do you see? Is that sort of something that people are very strong on? The village is very much there for the children and supporting each other.
Very much so. Very much so. Because Gambia and most African country is about family.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's the important thing that they've held on to. The family is very, very important. So, like in the UK, people are living 100 miles away from each other. But what you still find in Africa is that the families still live in the same village as each other. I mean, obviously, there are some families where because of work, they might have to travel from the provinces to the cities to get work. But they will always go back home, maybe every 2 months for certain festivals, Muslim festivals, etc. They'll always go home. So that village mentality is still there. That family mentality is still there. Just like we see in the Caribbean, it's very much an outdoor life. So in the evenings, dad, maybe the aunties are coming around, the uncles, the cousins, everybody will sit outside and talk and drink their tea and, have a laugh and a joke and things like that. It's not like in the UK where you're living next door to somebody and you don't even know their name.
So there's that much
That's
more
not how it is in
interaction.
Africa.
Yeah. Wow.
Very much more interaction. You know your neighbours. I mean, where I live, I know all my neighbours. I know all the young people. Some of them I've seen born, whatever it might be. And that village mentality is still there. That village interaction and cohesion is still here.
Beautiful. And we can certainly definitely learn from that, I feel, because the family seems to be very splintered, outside of that.
And maybe that's why our young people are the way they are in the UK, because there's a dysfunction, a split. That lack of cohesion is not there with the family anymore. The uncles might live in Leicester, the aunties are in London, somebody else somewhere else. I remember growing up in the 60s and on a Sunday after we finished our Sunday dinner, we'll go and visit different family members.
Okay.
That doesn't happen anymore. So, there's been a massive split in the family. The uncles and aunties are not involved as much anymore like they used to, or the neighbor down the road, if they saw you misbehaving on the street, that message will get home. They'll talk to you on the street, but the message will still get home for your parents to deal with you as well.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays it might be, well, it's not my child, it's not my business, I don't want to get involved. Yeah, so
Wrong
we're
attitude.
missing out. Yes, we're missing out on a lot where, we are all responsible for the children, just because it's Mrs. Jones' children, but we have to take responsibility for Mrs. Jones' children as well. Whereas in Africa, they still have that. I could see a child on the street misbehaving and I can go up and tell them off. And nobody will come and argue with me, leave my child alone, it's not your business. No, the parents will thank you for it.
Yeah, because you care, and it's an expected thing. Children, yeah, children belong to the community. So yeah, wow. I want to quickly, because I know you're vegan and you're into
Yeah.
nutrition. And what's the food? What's it like over there? Are people mostly vegans, or are they? What's the food like? What's the culture of food like in the Gambia?
Africans overall, they like their meat and their fish. So vegetarian veganism is still quite new to them.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh my gosh, what do you eat? You don't eat meat, you don't eat fish? Oh, you need that kind of food. And like, no, I don't. So they find it quite strange that I don't eat meat or fish or eggs or, drink milk and things like that. They really find that quite strange and they can't understand how I survive on the food that I eat. But slowly, sometimes say, oh, okay, that's interesting. I'll try this. I'll try that. They do ask questions, especially if I say to them, you've got to reduce the sugar because there's a lot of sugar in the attire here, which is like a green tea, sweet green tea that they drink for socializing. Awful lot of sugar in that. Still salt, a lot of salt is used, a lot of frying in, not good oils, all the substandard, things like white rice, white flour, white sugar, and they make them fairly cheap so that people will use those rather than the healthy options. So there's some work to be done on nutrition because, there's a lot of high blood pressure,
And
diabetes,
yeah,
yeah, cholesterol, strokes. You see a lot of people with missing limbs because of diabetes.
diabetes.
Yeah. And, that shouldn't be because, we've got soursop, we've got mango, we've got moringa, we've got baobab. All these plants have medicinal purposes. And, they're just dumping all their GMO foods and processed foods into Africa instead of leaving us to eat our natural foods that we grow ourselves, and that's conducive to our body and our melanated skin.
Wow. So again, nutrition is something that, education, education needs to be there for that. Because obviously the younger generation, 60%, under 30, you know,
Yeah,
they need their health. It's vital.
absolutely. And the mortality rate is too low here. I think it's 55 for women, was it 65 and 50 something for men. That's too low for Africa. Africans should be living easily to their 90s in,
Yeah.
in good health. Yeah, we shouldn't be, you might hear of somebody, oh, so and so's got a pain.
Mhm.
They went to the hospital and they died. How old were they? 35, 40, 50. That's no age. That's no age at all. So, we've got to find a way to keep people alive a lot longer, but not just keep them alive, but have a good quality of life as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Absolutely.
it comes from the diet. A lot of that comes from the diet.
I mean, that's the thing though, isn't it? Diet is really everything. It's like, even if you're active, if your diet's not good, it can still
Hmm.
be a problem. So
Absolutely. Well, your health is your wealth.
yes, for sure, for sure. So is that another thing? Is that another component to your business? You know, coaching and helping people with nutrition.
Well,
Yeah,
yes,
right. Wow,
yes,
wow.
definitely. Mm.
And there's a big scope for that. Um, what I'd like to ask you now, Shakina, is to just talk, just share with anyone who's listening, who
Mhm.
anything that maybe I haven't asked that you feel is relevant to help them to make a decision if they want to come out to the Gambia and,
Mhm.
have start that journey, as you said, they need to start a plan. What would you, yeah. So
Yeah.
anything you would like to say that I maybe haven't asked so far?
Okay. I would say, in addition to the plan, um, you've got to change your mindset as well to come out here. This is not the West. This is Africa. Um, you're going to find things that are different, and it's whether you can compromise on those differences. It is a developing country, and you've got to give it time to develop. Um, if you're very fussy about, I don't know, walking on the sand or, going through the potholes or, maybe not having running water all the time, the electricity might go off sometimes. That's Africa. We're not there yet. So I would say, you've got to come with a different mindset. You've got to come with a very open mindset to take Africa as it is and go along with the development of Africa, almost like a river that's flowing. Just roll with the tides, and stop off on the way and enjoy the development. I would also say you've got to take off the rose tinted glasses. Africa is beautiful, it's wonderful, it's nice, but you've got to have your wits about you as well. As I said earlier, people will use their opportunities like anywhere in the world, and you can't just let your guard down just because somebody looks like you, because somebody smiles with you, that everything is okay. Just like we've got cowboys and con artists and whatever else in other parts of the world, we have it here in Africa too. And so you've got to have your wits about you. If you're a cautious person in the UK, there's nothing wrong with being cautious here also, because it's about self-preservation. So you've got to do that. But I would say come with an open mind, enjoy it. The people are lovely. The food is great. The sunshine, the environment, the quality of life is, out of this world. It really is. I could work all day and still have enough energy to chill and socialize with my friends in the evening and, still enjoy that beautiful environment that, we have here in Africa. But I would say come out, come and see it, keep an open mind, as I said, have a plan, think about what you want, think about how you're going to generate an income. Unless you're a millionaire, you're going to have to generate an income, because you might have another 30 years to live here, let's say, depending on what age you come out. How are you going to sustain yourself? You don't have as many bills as the UK. You don't have council tax and TV license and all these things. But, you've got your land tax. You've got to buy your gas bottle because you use LPG gas. You've got to pay for your internet and your phone credit, your shopping. You want to go out sometimes for luxury, maybe to eat out, maybe for a spa day to a nice restaurant. So, you've got to have that kind of income to have some enjoyment sometimes, or your leisure time. And what would you do with yourself down here? Some people might want to just chill all day and do nothing, but other people might say, well, I'm still young enough, I want to do something. Think about what you might want to do down here. When you come down, you have a look, see what opportunities are here. Ask questions, speak to people that have been here. That's really important, that you speak to people that are here, people that have been here for a while and experienced in the system of Gambia. How do you navigate yourself around here? How do you open a bank account? What do you need to do to start a business? There's lots of information here. People are experienced. Speak to us. Don't just go off and do things because somebody's told you that you met on the street. This is the way you do something. Always ask for a second opinion and just be cautious about what you do. Don't just jump into anything without doing some research first.
Yeah. And that would apply to any new venture, you do need,
Only,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
I do believe in giving the full picture. I'm not just going to say Africa's fantastic, it's wonderful, and because I think that's wrong. You're setting people up to fail. We've got to be truthful. It's not perfect, but it's our imperfection to talk about. And we should, warn our own people about what happens. Just like, if you go anywhere, there's do's and don'ts. And it's the same here.
And there's, opportunities for people to find people that they can, they can get the true information from and be safe. So basically, it's about safeguarding yourself and your family, and making sure that you talk to people like yourself. And can you give your details again?
I will. It's Nubian, Nubian LC at AOL.co.uk. And we also have the African Diaspora Returnees Association.
Oh,
And I set that up about 2 years ago, in the wake of finding out that the Constitution was being rewritten. And I set that up so that we could network and fight for or lobby for citizenship. And we started that almost 2 years ago. I think this year, September, October will be 2 years that we started lobbying for citizenship. Now, the current constitution has two clauses in there if you're a non-Gambian. And if you're married for 7 years, yes, and living here continuously, you can apply for citizenship. Even when the marriage breaks down, you can still use that marriage clause to get the citizenship as long as you're here continuously. So that's the first way. The second way is if you're living here continuously for 15 years, then you can apply for citizenship also. Now, I think both of those shouldn't apply to us because as descendants of the enslaved, I think we have a birthright to come home and be recognized as African citizens. But I appreciate that, you can't just walk into a country and say, I want to be a citizen without, going through their checks and balances. So what I've said to them is, rather than 15 years, rather than marriage, we shouldn't have those conditions. Why not have an exception clause for descendants of the enslaved where we are fast-tracked citizens? So you can do your checks within 2 to 4 years, and then we can become citizens. And, in turn, we'll do our part. We'll learn the language, we'll adhere to the law and, learn the cultural nuances of the land, etc. So we'll do our part. We're not just saying we want and we're not going to give something back. And I'm really pleased that the Constitution Review Commission, who have been tasked with rewriting the Constitution, listened to the presentation that I gave and are very supportive for the fast-track citizenship. Very, very supportive. So what they've done, they are going to recommend Parliament to debate on that and, decide on whether they can give that to us or not. And I think, even though I don't know whether we'll get it or not, I think it's a really good supportive attitude that they took towards even listening and recommending that Parliament even consider that. And what's different is to other countries that have given citizenship. Now, Ghana gave 125 citizens last year. But the difference is that's not written into law.
Oh.
And what I said to Gambia is, it's okay having that, but that's very subjective, and it's subjective. Yeah. It can change depending on the regime that's in at the time, who's this and whether they agree with that or not. So I said, well, why not put it into law? Because it makes it generational as well. So that, when our children's children come after us, they will have the same fast-track citizenship clause that they can apply to in terms of, asking for citizenship. So I'm really hoping that they will debate positively on what we've asked for, do their checks, whatever they have to do, because they have to make sure that they're offering citizenship to the right people as well.
Yeah.
And then, if they do that, that will be really good, because then anything the Gambians are entitled to, we'll be entitled to as well. We'll get the passport, we'll be able to vote, we'll get the same land rights, everything. So I'm really hopeful that something will come of it. I can't say what yet, but as long as they're debating it, that's a good sign.
That's a very good sign. Yeah, and that is a big reduction that you're asking for as well. So that will make all the difference, won't it, to people?
It is, but I've given them reasons why we need that reduction. I've given very good reasons, and they appreciated the reasons that I gave, and that will help us a lot. So that's really good. And we had some land issues. There was a land proposal in the draft constitution that again wasn't conducive to us, where they would, where our land wouldn't be in perpetuity, because as you can appreciate, whatever we do here, we want to pass it on to our children and our children's children.
Absolutely. Oh.
And what they were saying was that after 90 years we would have to sell it back to a Gambian. And we were saying, no, that's not for us, but not for us as returning Africans. So again, I've asked for an exception clause for that. But the citizenship is the ultimate. If we get citizenship, we won't have to worry about any other clause in the constitution, because we'll be treated like a Gambian. But in case, and I don't believe that clause will go through, but just in case, I have asked him for an exception clause on that also, which will link in with the citizenship. So I've drafted something and given to the minister that will be heading up the constitution, in terms of what those clauses could look like legally.
So, I mean, you're making such a difference. It's going to make such a difference to people, in the future who want to come over to the Gambia. And obviously, as you say, I know it's not gone through yet, but there's a really strong chance. It sounds like, the fact that they're taking it on,
Yes.
that you could get this to go through. What would this mean to you and the other returnees that are there?
Oh, wow. It will, can you imagine that, to be recognized as an African from Africans on the continent? Yeah, we know we're African, but because of the disconnect, we've been away from our home for 500 years. And I believe that, the Africans on the continent thought that, when their family was taken away, stolen away, that they would never, ever see them again. And they didn't for hundreds of years. And what we're trying to get them to recognize is that those families that you lost, they didn't die off. They're returning home now through us. And this is why
it's quite emotional, actually, when you say
it is. It really is. It really is. And this is what, the continent doesn't realize, because when those enslaved were stolen, and, even them themselves, they were taken away in ships to faraway lands. They didn't know how to get back. They weren't able to get back. I mean, some did, hence we have Sierra Leone and Freetown.
Yeah. Liberia as well, yeah.
And Liberia, exactly. So some came back, but the vast majority weren't able to come back. So, the Americas and the Caribbean is full of those enslaved ancestry. So when we come back home, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal, because it meant that certain families and their lineage didn't die out. Because if they did, we wouldn't be here. So some survived, and they survived because they fought and they had faith in their Africanness, that they never forgot their Africanness. That's how we were able to return home, because they held on to something within them that, they knew that one day they've got to return home by hook or by crook. And this is why last year, when I opened the first housing estate, it was important that we dedicated that back to the ancestors. And, our ancestors left through the door of no return. And so this is why I'm calling the housing estates that I'm putting together the door of return. And so we had a ceremony last year where we walked through the door of return and brought our ancestors back home, because they can't come home unless we invite them. So we had a big ceremony where we drummed and poured libation and did everything to bring our ancestors home. And I'm currently planning the opening of estate number 2, which I hope might happen maybe April time.
Wow.
So that we can do that one. And every estate, I'm on number 5 so far. Every estate, we're going to do the same thing to show respect and pay homage and bring our ancestors home.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. It just really brings it home to, what has happened. And as you say, the big divide and you having to explain, you haven't lost your people. We are your people. And,
Mm,
that new understanding that, is obviously going to, occur as they get used to seeing more and more people returning.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And when we come home and we learn the language and the cultural nuances,
Mm,
that's how we start to reconnect
mm.
back to land, because the roots, might have been slightly damaged, but we never, those roots never died.
Mm.
They never died. And, even when you learn, I speak a little bit of Wolof. I'm not absolutely fluent, but
I was
I
going to ask
understand
you if
what
you,
I'm
yeah.
saying a bit.
Okay.
Yeah. And some of the words and the phrases, they're directly, the same patois that we speak in the Caribbean.
Wow.
So we know that those Africans held on to the language, and even things like jumping the broom, and they weren't allowed to get married, but they found ways of still marrying, because that's what we did in Africa. We married, to form a family. You got married. They still found ways to do that, because that's their culture. So
Wow.
there's a lot going on, and the way that I try to encourage people to come home is to create a bridge. So hence why I create the housing estate, so that people, it's almost like holding their hand as they cross the bridge from the west to come home.
Mm.
So, creating these estates where they can live around other returnees if it's comfortable for them to do so. And, they can have those estates where it's a bit more familiar for them if that's what they want. And a lot of people do want to live in estates where other returnees are, because it's comfortable for them to do so.
Wow, Shakina, some deep stuff and lots of food for thought. And, I definitely, thank Brother Dougie for, introducing us, dear Brother Dougie.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really, really impressed with what you're doing and especially changing the laws and getting, getting them to actually take what you're doing seriously, I think is amazing. And yeah.
It's important because, we've come home to integrate. We haven't come home to be separate. But for us to integrate, we've got to be recognized as Africans. We've got to. We're not visitors. We are Africans returning home. We're lost children. There's nowhere else in the world we can go but to come back to the continent. This is the only land that we can call home. So if we're not recognized here, what do we do?
No, just hearing you say that, Shakina, I don't know if people ever really thought about that as in, you know, the lost children and where do you go? Where do you really belong? So
Where do we
wow,
belong? Yeah,
wow.
we don't know, do we? Because, unless we're accepted here, we haven't got anywhere else.
And so this is why it's for you, you're really fighting for this because it's like there is no other door that you can see to go through.
There is no other door, no other door, no other door. This is the door of return. Here is the door of return. If I was to do a DNA test, which I haven't,
Mhm.
the Africanness will be there. It doesn't matter what percentage, it's there.
Mm.
So,
I mean that is the
how much longer?
passport, isn't it? Really, that is the passport in Africa.
It is.
Yeah,
It is. How much longer can we be denied? You can't. And if we don't come back home and be accepted as Africans, we'll always be separate. The only title we should be accepting is African. Nothing else. We don't need anything else.
yeah. I'm sure everyone is sitting at home listening and feeling, that it's opening up people's minds. I don't think on a daily basis. People always think. I know some people do, but not everybody. So I think you've
Yeah.
really just opened up people's minds to the fact that, um, it doesn't matter where we are on the globe, we're all, one people. And this is the passport, as you say, the DNA doesn't matter how much. We are African people, and that's a beautiful
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you see people like Marcus Garvey, he knew that, and he started this campaign long before we were born.
Mm.
He recognized that we need to return to Africa, and that's what he fought hard to do, and he was quite successful at it. His own Black Star liner, the traveling around the Caribbean, galvanizing Pan-Africanism, worked with the Trinidadians and other people, and we're just building on his legacy. That's all we're doing.
This is the thing when someone like Marcus Garvey has started something, even though he's long gone, the
Mhm.
energy, carries on as someone else builds on, stands on his shoulders. And this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all we can do as Africans now is pass a good baton on to our children. And the question we need to ask ourselves is, what kind of baton are we passing on?
Big question. Oh,
Yes, good
big question.
question. Good question.
Yeah, Shakina, you've definitely brought food for thought here. And is there before we wrap up this segment, anything you want to share before we wrap up this section?
I would say, I look at the news a little bit in the UK, not too much. And I've seen the Windrush saga, I've seen Brexit.
Mm.
I understand you have a little bit of fear about leaving your comfort zone, but let me tell you something. The quality of life you can have here, the peace of mind that you can have here, and you have to come out and taste it for yourself. I can tell you all day, all night how great it is, how happy I am here, and I'm pleased with the achievements that I'm making down here. You can do what you need to do. You can be creative. You can be your African self. No one's going to tell you about your natural hair and your this and your that. You could just be yourself here. So why not come somewhere where you can have a better quality of life and enjoy the second half of your life, if you want to call it that? You've got the sun, you've got the sea, you've got good food. Mango season's coming. I'm just waiting for that because I love mangoes
Love
more than
mango.
anything. So I can't even wait for them to come off the tree sometimes. I just love mango so much. And, it's there, it's free. You can go to any tree, choose, soursop, everything is here. Melon, we just come out of melon season. Oranges are in now, and the oranges are absolutely amazing. I eat about 6 oranges a day
Wow.
because they're so nice. And, you pay pittance for them. Papayas are here with seeds in. Imagine you get fruits with seeds in here.
Oh, yeah, seeds are very
Yeah,
important.
seeds. Yes, exactly. No GMO. No
Wow.
GMO. I can
Organic
cut a
food.
papaya. I cut a papaya 2 days and it's full of seeds. Absolutely full of seeds.
Shakina,
Yeah.
thank you so much. It sounds delightful, and certainly the work you're doing, sounds amazing, and making changes, that is going to be better for people as they decide to make the journey over. So
Yeah.
yeah, keep up the great work, and thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Well, thank you for reaching out and inviting me. I enjoyed the conversation, and I just hope that people heed the call, come home to Africa.
Thank you so much, and blessings to you, and the community that's building up over there sounds amazing.
Yes, it is. And it's growing. It's really growing. I thought I'd just do one estate. I never imagined in my wildest dream that I'll be on estate number 5.
Oh, 5. Oh my goodness.
Yes,
Wow.
5. One.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Amazing. But it just shows,
People are
doesn't it? Yeah.
coming. It just shows people want to come out, but they need some assistance. They need help. And that's why I said, speak to us that have been here for a while. We can help you because we know the pitfalls and we can help you avoid those pitfalls. Thank you, Imani. And we share the same name. My middle name's Imani. Yes.
Imani, and people, I don't know if people know, it means faith, having faith. And obviously that's certainly you're proving that in all that you're doing.
Yeah, those of us that follow Kwanzaa, we know that Imani means faith, and that's why I chose it. That's the very reason why I chose it.
That's what happened to me as well. Yeah. So thank you so much, Shakina, Imani, and wishing you continued success in all that you're doing. And thank you for being a guest on the show and sharing all this information. I'm sure people are really thinking, and we'll get in contact.
Thank you very much. And you stay blessed, sister, and you keep doing what you're doing, sharing the information across the airways for our people.
Oh, thank you.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.